around making some really simple little earrings with these two are gemstones. This one I believe is a glass turquoise rondelle. I think it's a check glass, but basically little gemstone looking type of beads, and making some really simple earrings. And I've made 3 different styles, so I thought I'd go ahead and show you. So I've got very, very simple and basic, a little bit more complicated, and just a tiny bit more complicated than that one. So each one is a tiny step up, but they're all very, very easy, all beginner's level. So I want to start by making this very easy one first. And I'm going to show you what I used in each one of these separately. So with this one, I believe this is a type of picture jasper, I believe. My gemstones aren't always labeled, and sometimes I forget exactly what they are. But I'm using 4 of them, and they are about 6 millimeter, maybe close to 7 millimeter around, but 6 millimeter will work just fine. Any kind of bead you have. These are 7 millimeter, but 6 will work just fine. And gemstones tend to run a little bit different than your glass beads. So you could use a Jarouk, you could use a pearl, whatever you'd like. And then with these, I'm using some check 6/0 seed beads with these ones, just because the Toho 6/0s are quite a bit bigger. The check ones are smaller and rounder, and it works a little bit better in this very round style. So I'm using some check seed beads. And then I'm using some 8/0s, and these are bronze Toho 8/0s. And I have a couple of 11/0s in this. So these are also bronze Toho 11/0s. Now you're going to need 8 of your gemstone, and 16 of your 6/0, and 8 of your 8/0, and probably 4 11/0. Or 5, actually. No, 4. I didn't put an accent stone there. Okay. So, you'll also need ear wires. And I am going to use a copper ear wire with this. And I've only got out one because, of course, I've already made the other earring. I'm also going to be using a size 10 beading needle and some 8-pound fire line in the smoke color, because it works much better with these beads I'm using as far as the color is concerned. So I'm going to take about an arm's length from my fingertips to my shoulder. I'm going to take of my thread. And I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle, and we'll be back. This particular earring, we're going to pick up a gemstone and then 2, or whatever your 7 millimeter bead is, and then 2 6/0 seed beads, and then a gemstone, and then 2 6/0 seed beads. One of my gemstones is smaller than the other. Gemstones, you never know. Let me pick up 2 more of my 8/0s and another gemstone, 2 more 8/0 and a gemstone, and then 2 8/0. So what I've got on my thread is 4 gemstones with 2 8/0s in between. Start with a gemstone, end with 2 8/0s. Or, excuse me, these are 6/0 seed beads. These are check 6/0. And then we're going to just bring your working thread over to your tail thread and come through that first gemstone. And you can go through the 6/0 behind it also. That's fine. And we're going to go ahead and just sew around all of these beads. So just hold them gently and come through all of your beads so that we can secure the circle without having to tie a knot. After you get all the way around, then go ahead and go through the gemstone and then 1 of the 6/0 seed beads. Tighten your circle a little bit by pulling your tail and your working thread, and then we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead. This is my bronze Toho 8/0. Let's get a little closer, and we're just going to go from 6/0, from this 6/0 into the next 6/0, into the next gemstone, and into the next 6/0 like this, and pull this through. And then we're going to repeat that. So I went through, I was out of 160 and then went through 60 gemstone 60, and then I'm going to do that again. I am going to pick up an 80, go through 60 gemstone 60 gemstone, I can't talk, and pull that around. Now this is where it's going to change a little bit. Now you're going to pick up 2 of your 11 seed beads and go into 60 gemstone 60, and don't go through the 80, just go through the 60s. Now you want these to kind of lay with the hole up a little bit so that they're at a slant next to each other. Then we're going to go ahead and sew back around just to secure this, and we're not going to sew through the 80s, just through the 60 and the 60s and the gemstones. That will draw the 60s together better and give a little bit more strength and keep the 80s kind of jutting out. And then when you come through your very last one, come up through this first 11 seed bead right here. So I'm coming through the 60, the gemstone, the 60, and then through the 11 on that side. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick up an 80 seed bead and drop it down. And then I'm going to get my ear wire, and I'm going to make sure my ear wire loop is closed very tightly because sometimes they're open. So make sure it's closed just by opening it, by twisting it, and then twist it back down and make sure that that loop is closed tightly. Then come through your ear wire. And then come back through the 80 seed bead and then the 11 on the other side. So you're coming out of this one, you're going to go into this one. And then go ahead and go through your gemstone and the 60, so the 60, gemstone 60, and pull this down. We're going to sew back around one more time just to make sure that we have everything secure. I'm going to cut this tail off just because it's in my way and kind of bugging me. I'm going to use a little thread zapper I had a regular thread zap like this. I always use a lighter, and people always say, why don't you use the thread zap? Well, it didn't work worth a darn. It just ran out of batteries every time I used it, even if I took the batteries out. So I bought this one, and look at how well this one works. This one works great. I don't know the exact name of it, but this one's really good. So I'm going to use that, burn down that little tail thread, and then I'm going to come back up through all my beads because I want to, or actually I need to sew all the way around. Started going the wrong direction, excuse me. I'm just going to sew around all my beads. If you'd like to, you can include the 80, but it's probably better if you don't. I did go through the 80 on that one, but it just pulls the 60s and the round beads together tighter so that you get more of a jutting out look here if you go through just your 60s and your gemstones. Now I'm going to go ahead and come up through the 11 here again, and then into the 80 seed bead. I want to make sure I have at least 2 passes of thread through this or through the ear wire. So I've come up through the ear wire. I'm going to come back down into the 80 and then back into this 11, and then I'll just sew all the way over here. Now if you'd like to, you can tie a knot, but we've gone through this enough to where you probably don't need to. So I'm coming out of this 80 seed bead here. I'm going to cut off my thread and burn it down here. and you have a very nice, simple earring, little gemstone earring. Really cute. And here is its match, right here. And that turned out really cute, I think. So the next one we're going to do, the next one we're going to do is this one. And these are little gemstones. They're red tiger's eye gemstones, and they're a rondelle. And you can use just a crystal rondelle if you'd like. This is 4 by 6 millimeter. You can experiment with other sizes of it. The concept should work fine. You may have to change the size of your 11 O's to 8 O's and your 8 O or whatever. Just kind of up and down size things, but you might just get away with just using the same beads I'm using as far as the seed beads are concerned too. You'll just get a little bit different shape and a little bit different size earring. But try whatever you'd like. A Chinese crystal rondelle will work really good with this too. And like I said, I am using a tiger's eye gemstone. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and thread onto our needle another arm's length of the 8-pound fire line. I'm using smoke again. We're going to be using the rondelles, and this is, like I said, a 6x4 or 4x6. It's 4 in width and 6 this way, however you want to put it, I don't know. And then I've got some 6O seed beads. These are Toho bronze, metallic bronze 6O seed beads. And then I've got some 8O seed beads, and this is Toho, and these are all, rose gold color. And then I've got some 11O Tohos, which are the metallic bronze. And we're going to begin, also an ear wire, we're going to begin by picking up an 8O seed bead, or excuse me, a 6O seed bead, and then one of our rondelles, and then 2 of our 6O seed beads, then a rondelle, and then 2 6O seed beads. There's some weird thing on my, it's part of the string it was strung on. There we go. And then a rondelle, 2 6O seed beads, and a rondelle, and then 1 6O seed bead. And I'll show you what I've got. So this is what I've got. I started with 1 6O, and then a rondelle, 2 6Os, rondelle, 2 6Os, rondelle, 2 6Os, rondelle, and then 1 6O. Now I am going to pick up, I'm going to bring these down to the end of my thread, and I'm going to pick up 14 of my 11 O's. So just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Make sure you have 14, so drop them down on your thread, and then I just count them again just to make sure. So 14. Now bring your threads around like this. So your working thread is over the top of your tail thread, and then come through as many beads as you would like on the tail side, like this. Just making a circle, and then we're going to sew through the entire circle again. So let's see if I can actually do this. Just kind of have to hold your beads and then pull your thread and your tail. Be very gentle because you'll pull the beads off the tail end. Okay. So I've sewn through all of the big beads. Now I'm going to sew through 7 of my 11 O's. So as I sew up, I'll just count. I've got 3, 6, 7. And then I'm going to hold on to my beads and pull up through, and then pull my tail, bring it all together, and you can see that this will then part your beads. Let me make sure I have 7 here. 6, 7, and then I should have 7 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So we're just coming out of the middle of the 14 beads. Now we're going to pick up 2 11O seed beads, and we're going to go down into the 8th bead. So you're coming out of the 7th bead, you're going to go down into the 8th bead and go all the way down through all 7 of them. And you can just go through the 6/0 and the crystal right here, or the gemstone, whatever you're using. Get my tail out of there, and just pull these down, and just make sure they kind of lay at an angle. Don't pull it too tight. You need a little bit slack in it, but you don't want slack in it. You just don't want them tight and bunched. Just like this. This is what this should look like. Now we are going to go through this 8/0 or 6/0 seed bead. I'm coming out of the rondelle, so I'm just going to come through the 6/0. And then I'm going to pick up an 8/0. And I'm using my rose gold color, and I'm just going to go into the next 8/0, pass through the rondelle, and then pass through the next 8/0 or 6/0. I'm so sorry. I'm going in with an 8/0 and I'm going through 6/0s. I don't use 6/0s very often, so I don't seem to want to acknowledge that that's what they are. Now I'm coming out of this 6/0. I'm going to pick up an 8/0, and then I'm going to go into the next 6/0 and the rondelle and the 6/0 behind it. I'm going to pull on my tail thread, pull on my working thread a little bit, make sure that everything is nice and neat, and then I'm going to pick up another 8/0 seed bead, go into my next 6/0 and the rondelle behind it and the 6/0 behind it, and I'm going to try to pass through all 7 of these beads until I come through the bead that I placed secondary on top of these 14 beads. This one that's laying at an angle. I'm going to come through it also. Hold it very gently as you pull it gently anyway, and come out of that bead that's angled upward like this. Now pull your tail a little bit, pull your working thread a little bit, make sure everything's nice and neat, and then you are going to pick up a 8/0 seed bead and then an 11/0 and drop those down. And then you're going to get an ear wire. Go through your ear wire. Again, make sure your ear wire is closed tightly because your thread will just slide right through it if it's not. And they never are. So I'm just going to close this really tightly. And I didn't do it. Let's see. These copper ones seem to be a little bit harder to close than the silver ones are. And after I've closed that, I'm going to pass through it, making sure that the ear wire part is down towards your bead mat, just so that the front of your earring is correct, because it will kind of make a difference with this one. And then come through the 11/0 and the 8/0, and then go into the 11/0 on this side that you placed in. Let me get you even closer. So we are going through this 11/0, this 8/0, and coming through the slanted 11/0 on this side. And then we'll go through the 11/0s behind them. Just go very slowly, guide your needle through until you come through this rondelle, like this. And then pull your thread through and pull your ear wire down. And this is what you should have. Now we're going to sew back around this twice. The first time we're going to put in 11/0. The second time we'll go up and secure our ear wire. We want at least 2 passes of thread through it. At this point I can go ahead and take off my tail just so it's not in my way. And now as I sew through these, I'm just going to go through the 8/0s, or excuse me, the 6/0s and the rondelles as I sew through. And I'm just not going to sew through that 8/0. This is going to give a little bit more structure to the piece. So I'm going through all my beads. I've got 8/0, I skipped or excuse me, 6-0. I skipped the 8-0, went through the 6-0, the rondel, and the 6-0. But I really don't want to acknowledge these 6-0s for some reason. They're just not 6-0s to me. Now I'm going to skip this 8-0, go into this 6-0, the rondel, and the 8-0 behind it, and then sew all the way up through all 7 of these beads. And just 7 of them. Don't go through the 2 that we put at an angle. So that should, the 2 right underneath the 8-0 up here. We don't want to go underneath those 2. Or through them, anyway. Underneath is fine, through them, no. Now we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. And we're going to skip these 2 and go into these 7 over here. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm coming out of these 7. I'm going to skip these 2. I picked up an 11-0. And I am now going to sew through all 7 of these. Just make sure you don't skip any. And just go all the way through until you get through that rondel. And pop this 11-0 down. And that will hide any extra thread you have showing right here where we did our ear wire area connection. So now we're going to sew through one more time, and we're going to sew through just like we did before. Go through the 8-0s, or excuse me, go through the 6-0s, avoid the 8-0s, and then go through the rondels. So I'm just going through the big beads, leaving those little 8-0s to stick out without going through them. Giving more structure to my piece, more strength, and it holds the shape nicer. So I give a little tug as I go through each rondel. There we go. And that's what that looks like. Now we're going to sew back up through our ear wire one more time, so we have at least 2 threads coming through that will come down. You can tie a knot if you want, or you can just go ahead and sew around a little further and cut off your thread. So I am going to go up through all of these 11-0s, and they get a little bit tight at this point, so you just have to kind of go really slow. And I've pulled through all 7 of those. Now I'm going to go up into the one on top of the 7th one, and then into this 8-0, and then into the 11-0 on top of that 8-0, and then through my ear wire if I can. So like this. You can take each one at a time, however you want to do it. Go through the beads and then go through the ear wire. It doesn't matter, as long as you go through all of them. Make sure your ear wire doesn't get twisted, and then go through the ear wire. Then you're going to have to go back down through these 2 beads right here, the 11-0 and the 8-0, and then we'll go through the 11-0 on this side. Now I'll sew down into the 11-0s on this side again. So I'm going to go into this one directly underneath the 11-0 I'm coming out of, go through all 7 of these, and exit my 6-0 here. And I'm just going to attempt to tie a knot here. So I'm just going to go underneath, make a loop, and pull this knot down between these 2 beads right here so that you can't see it. And then I'm going to go into this rondel, and I'm going to go into the 6-0 and out the 8-0. Give a little tug, make sure it's tight, and then I'm going to just cut this off. Yes, I like that thread zapper. It works really well. And here is the set. And see, I sewed this one a little bit tighter going around than I did this one. I probably went through these 8-0s. And you can see the difference. These 8-0s jut out a little bit better. I have a little nicer shape here than I do on this one. This was my design one. And so that's why it's nicer to just sew through the 6/0s and the rondelles than to go through the 8/0s, because it pulls the 8/0s in a little bit more. And it doesn't give quite this stiff structure. This one's a lot stiffer than this one. I will probably make another one to match this one. But that's what that looks like as a set. And then we will make this one. So let me get a little pile of stuff ready, and I'll be back. Now I'm going to show you how to make this earring. For this earring, we will be using more 4x6 rondelles, but these are a check glass, I believe, turquoise color faceted 4x6 rondelle. So I will be using those. They may be even a check glass donut bead, but it's basically a rondelle. So you could use a Chinese crystal rondelle, whatever you'd like. And then I am going to be using some 6/0 seed beads again, and these are again the Toho bronze color 6/0. And then we'll be using some O beads, and you'll need just 6 of them, 3 for each earring. And these are the check O beads, like this. And these are labradorite in color. Then we'll be using 2 colors of 11/0 seed beads. You'll need more of one than the other. You'll need at least 14 of the silver is what I'm using, and just a few of the 11/0 in the Toho bronze color. So then you will put onto your needle an arm's length of thread. I'm using again the 8-pound fire line in the smoke color, and you will need an ear wire. I'm using a silver ear wire for this one. Then you will begin, after you've threaded your needle, by picking up onto your needle a 6/0 seed bead and then a rondelle, and then a 6/0, an O bead, a 6/0, a rondelle, and then a 6/0, an O bead, a 6/0, and a rondelle. I'm going to move those down a little bit, and then I'm going to pick up a 6/0, an O bead, and a 6/0, and a rondelle, and a 6/0. Let me show you what I have as I move these down to the end of my thread, and I'm going to leave a couple inches on the end of my thread so that I can hold on to it. Probably about 3 or 4 inches. And this is what you should have. You should have a 6/0, a rondelle, 6/0, O bead, 6/0, rondelle, 6/0, O bead, 6/0, rondelle, 6/0, O bead, 6/0, rondelle, 6/0. Just like that. Then we are going to pick up, we're just going to leave these sitting down here. Let me rearrange my camera just a little bit. And now we are going to pick up 14 of the 11/0 in the silver color. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Let me make sure. I'm going to bring these down. And after I get them down, I'll just count them again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And now I will hold on to my tail and come through the tail side, the first 2 beads. Just like this. Hold on to those 2 beads and pull your beads into a circle. Now, hold on to your tail. Just tuck it between 2 of your fingers and begin sewing through all of these big beads on the bottom. Let me get you just a little closer now. And we will just start sewing through all of these beads. So I came out of the rondelle, so I'm starting at this 6/0, and I'm just going through all of the bottom beads here, the big ones. Make sure you're holding onto your tail when you pull your thread through, and gently pull it through, and then keep going until you come out of the last 6/0. Continue holding onto your tail and sew up 7 of these beads, these 11/0s. So I'm just going to count as I pass my needle through. That's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then hold on to your tail. Let me back off a little bit. I hope I was in camera. And pull these through. So now I should be coming out of the 7th bead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I am. And I should have 7 beads on this side. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I do. Now I am going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads in the bronze color. And I'm going to go from this 11-0 into the very next 11-0. So I'm just going to hold it like this and then go into the 11-0s and go through all 7 of them. On my needle I have 2 bronze 11-0s. So I'm just going through all of these. I'm going to pass through this rondelle here, go through the 6-0 and the rondelle. I'm going to hold on to all my beads and my tail all at once and pull these down until they lay at an angle next to each other. And I'm just adjusting the tension on my thread so that these 2 beads rise a little bit. Let me get you closer. And they rise a little bit. They're laying kind of diagonal next to each other, and they're nice, and no bunching but no slack, just like that. Now we are going to go through this 8-0 seed bead because I'm coming out of the rondelle. I'm going to go just into the 8-0, exit. I'm going to pick up a bronze 11-0 seed bead, and then I am going to go through just the O bead and pull. Just gently, work gently through this because everything's not really secure yet. So now what I have done is I have placed an 11-0 right next to that O bead. Now I'm coming out of the O bead, I'm going to pick up another 11-0 and I'm going to go into the 6-0, and then I'm going to go into the rondelle behind it and the next 6-0, just like this, and gently pull my thread through and pop that 11-0 down between the 6-0 and the rondelle. And then we're going to do that again. Go into just the O bead, gently pop it down, then pick up an 11-0, go into the 8-0, the rondelle, and the 6-0 behind it. And then again, pick up an 11-0, go into the O bead, exit the O bead and pull your 11-0 down, pick up an 11-0, and then go into the 6-0, the rondelle, and the 6-0 behind it. You can also slide through your 7 11-0s if you can do it all at once. If not, just exit the rondelle and then come through the seed beads. Gently pull all this down, pop that into place, and this is what you should have. Now I'm coming out of this 11-0. I want to go up into this bronze 11-0 here that's laying at an angle, so I'm going to go into it right here, pull my thread through, then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, drop it down, then I'm going to pick up my ear wire, make sure it's closed tightly, and I'm going to sew through it with the hook part down towards my mat, like this. And then it can fall, it doesn't matter. And then I am going to go right back into this 11-0 that I just put on, and the 11-0 on the other side, the bronze one right here, and then slide through all 7 11-0s, the 6-0, and the rondelle, and pull this down. Arrange my ear wire so it's correct. Must have it twisted. There we go. No, still don't have it twisted. Okay, well, that's all right. I'm just going to make sure that this is my front then. Just like that. Now, I'm coming out of this rondelle. I am going to pick up a rondelle, and I'm going to go directly into the next rondelle, like this. And pull. And then I'm again coming out of the rondelle. I'm going to pick up another rondelle and go into the next rondelle. And pull. And turn it around. That's what that looks like. Now I need to pick up one more rondelle and go into the next rondelle. I'm also going to go up into the 6/0 seed bead and exit. You can slide up all 7 of the beads if you want, but I'm just going to do it separately just to make sure everything looks good before I go up. And I will place a little 11/0 here, secure by sewing through again, and then I will come back up through my ear wire just to make sure everything has form and everything is strong. So now we're going to go up through these 7 beads on this side. And I'm going to exit the last bead in the silver here, the one before the couple that go up into the ear wire. So I'm just going through the silver beads. And then I am going to pick up a bronze 11/0. And then I'm going to skip over all this stuff on top here and go down into these 7 beads. And I'll go ahead and go through the 6/0 and the rondelle. Pull this down and pop that bead down between the silver 11/0s like this. Now I'm going to cut off this tail. Melt that down a little bit more. And then I'm coming out of this rondelle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew through the rondelles. So I'm going to sew through this rondelle. So I'm coming out of this one. I'm going to sew through this one and then this one down here. And I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to sew through this rondelle. And you can do one at a time if you feel like you're going to bunch them up. Don't bunch them up. Sew through the next rondelle. And sew through these 2. I'm just going to do one at a time. The angles are kind of weird. Whoops. And then go up through this one and the 6/0. And I'm going to pass through all 7 of my 11/0s again if I can. Now they get a little bit tight here. I'm going to exit. I still have to go through 2 here. And then I am going to sew up through these bronze beads on the top here and through my ear wire, so I have at least 2 passes of thread through my ear wire. So I'm going through this 11/0 and this 11/0 and through my ear wire. Then I'm going to go back down. I'm through the ear wire. I'm going to go around it into the 11/0 that I just came out of, and then back into the 11/0 on the other side of it. And so I just went through these 2 bronze 11/0s, and now I have to go back down all 7 of these. And they get a little tight at this point, so just go carefully and slowly through them. And I'm going to go all the way until I can pass through one of the beads at the bottom. It doesn't matter which one, if you come out of the rondelle or the 6/0 or this little 11/0 here, it doesn't matter. Just pull it through. And since I'm right here, I'm just going to tie a knot here. So I'm going to reach down and grab the thread between the beads, create a circle, go through that circle, and pull a knot down. And then I'll go through this O bead and this 11/0. See if I can get through there. and the 6/0 behind it. Now I'm just going to go up into this rondel and into this 6/0 and this 11/0, and I am going to cut off my thread. Make sure you burn that down so it's not sticking out. And there, my friends, is another earring. Like I said, this one is a little bit more involved than the other two. So I've gone from very, very simple to a little bit less simple in this one. So you can pick whichever one suits you, or you can do all three of them depending upon your skill level and what you feel like you can do. So none of them are difficult. They're all very easy. It's just depends on your level of experience. And here are the finished product. This one I think I'm going to sew through again and see if I can get it to be a little bit tighter. But that's what these 3 pairs of earrings look like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you make yourself a pair. Bye-bye.